Welcome back, Amazon Associates. I'm Kelly from CompTIA, and we are continuing our conversation with Erica Woods, an IT recruiter with Apex Systems who has an extensive knowledge of coaching and recruitment. Did I get it all in there, Erica?
You sure did.
Awesome. Well, thanks for making the time again today to talk about resume tips for new IT professionals. So, what would you say needs to make it onto our Amazon Associates resumes?
Well, it's great to see you guys again, Amazon Associates, and be here today. I think resumes is hands down the biggest pain point that job seekers experience. And, while I was thinking about this, there's a couple core things that stand out to me over the hundreds and thousands of resume reviews I've done. I think the first piece is that you really need to understand and focus on the outcomes of what you have done. So too often I see resumes that are talking about responsibilities in a very broad sense, or they're focused on the initiative, the responsibilities of the team. And so I think it's helpful to first ask yourself, with all the work, the amazing work that you've done, how have you been measured, right? Look back at your performance reviews, consult with, your most recent boss if you'd like, other folks in your team, but really try to identify those metrics and speak to those metrics. And I'll give you an example of somebody I worked with recently who's in an very entry-level technical support role. I asked her that question, like, hey, what have you measured on? She said, oh, well, we have surveys that are sent to folks after we help end users with tickets. I'm like, oh, that's great. Well, do you have a score that you have? And she said, I have a 0.95 out of 5. Like, that's amazing. That's a good point, a good metric can really speak volumes to your performance.
Excellent. So clearly results focused is an important aspect of your resume. What else should be in that survey of your skills?
So I think one of the other big things is focusing on all the tools and technologies, right? Too often a technologist will hide all the tools, the systems they've worked with, they've helped troubleshoot end users with at the bottom of their resume instead of organically including it within the job where you did it. So I think that's another piece that can help make you stand out and also clearly communicate to the recruiters who are going to be reviewing your resumes during any job searches, what you did, and what you did it with.
Absolutely. And our Amazon associates are in this program because they've shown initiative. They have lots of relatable skills, but perhaps not particularly relevant experience or experience that speaks to the job roles that they're looking at. So where should all of those extra skills and activities make it in there?
I'm so glad you brought that up, Kelly, because one of the other things that's missing too often from resumes, and it's just a great marketing strategy and a way to build your experience and then communicate your initiative and additional skills to folks, is through those extracurriculars, as I call them. So really ask yourself, outside of my day job, what am I doing? And that could include, volunteering at nonprofit initiatives, right? So just put yourself in the shoes of a recruiter or hiring manager, but how good does it look? What positive traits are associated? You go volunteer at the local Ronald McDonald House, even if it's once a quarter, right? If you help organize a clothing drive to support a local shelter. So I think that stuff really, really matters. And again, it's communicating the types of traits that all folks want in their employees, which is they're a good human, right? And one other example is that additional training piece. I've talked about it before, but there's so many different, free training providers out there. There's no shortage of amazing content that you can access for free. So understanding what are the tools and technologies and systems that are in demand, what are the certifications that are in demand, like an A+ and a Security Plus, and then how can I access additional training and then add that to my resume?
Right. Certainly you need to have those buzzwords in there, but you never know what's going to be a conversation starter or something that you might have in common with the person on the other side of that resume. So that's very relevant advice. So let's talk about what happens after you create the resume. Certainly, if you have a perfect resume, but you can't get it read by a human, chances are you're not going to get that job. So, what are your ideas for getting into that online system?
Well, it's funny, you just alluded to it, Kelly, with the buzzwords concept, right? One of the things you have to do as a job seeker is you have to understand what is the industry jargon and terminology for the types of roles that I'm applying for, right? So one company might call it a field tech, someone else might call it just technical support specialist, but it's one, understanding the most common job titles associated for your target roles and the tools and technologies that are being used, right? And then as you're looking and applying for roles, your first step, you need to be spending 5 or 10 minutes really reviewing the job listing or posting, looking at comparing it against your resume. And yes, this is going to take you some time and it might be a pain, but again, you have to get your resume past the applicant tracking system. You want that system to rank your resume higher so that it gets eyes on it from, a recruiter at whatever firm that you're applying to. And 93% of companies or higher have an applicant tracking system. That first step is understanding the language they're using and applying to your resume.
So, you have to beat the bots before you can ever make it to a human.
You do.
I know what I used to do is print out the entirety of my LinkedIn profile, which is every professional pursuit I've ever done, and then print out the job recommendations and kind of see where there's an overlap or where I might be able to add the best buzzword or the most used buzzword on there. So it certainly is time consuming, but it's worth it for that job that you want.
Yeah, and you just brought up a great recommended exercise. Look at the job description, turn the requirements and the responsibilities into a checklist, right? Have I done that? Is it represented? Oh, let me go ahead and add that, right? So that's a great exercise that, again, will probably take you about 10 or 15 minutes and whittle down as you get the hang of it.
Well, and it's like everything else. You have the skills to succeed. You just need to make sure that it's in this little bingo card of relevant experience to get to the front door.
Exactly.
So, are there any other resume tips that you want to get out there that I haven't asked you about?
So the exercise we just talked about is kind of the concept of organic optimization, where you're doing that reflection identification and you're enhancing and embedding that stuff in your resume yourself. But it's also really important to know that there's tools out there where you can do kind of a match rank of your resume against the job description. So the one that we recommend a lot is called JobScan, which you get five free of those a month. But that can also help you identify additional strategies because it tells you here's your percentage match and then here's recommendations. So I think that's the first one. If you just feel like, hey, I'm not hearing anything back, definitely take that extra step to use a tool. And then my other big piece of advice is find an additional outreach attempt that you can make. So a lot of recruiters, staffing firms, they'll have a point person listed. And I will pay you $10 if you can find a recruiter that's not on LinkedIn, right? Because that's where we live. Half of our workday is on LinkedIn. So hopefully you've got a LinkedIn channel, which is built out. That's very, very important in conjunction with your resume. But look them up on LinkedIn and say, hey, Kelly, I see you have a technical support role. I'm really interested in it. I've read a lot about your company, so show you did your homework. When can you talk for 10 minutes? Give it a call to action, make that request, but don't just rely on applying online and that's it, because you're not going to have success. Unfortunately, it's rare to have success for all jobs. It's just not.
And I'll go ahead and ask, what should you do if you get one of those emails that say, we're sorry, but you're not quite the right fit at this time, or we're going forward with other candidates? What do you do with that email?
Well, one, you have to understand that rejection is part of the process. And, there's a lot of candidates applying for jobs. So having that mentality and, brushing it off and kind of moving on is key. But if you haven't had a chance to connect with a person yet, again, I would take that extra step. Because we might even say, hey, the position you applied for, is no longer available, right? You'll get a rejection letter email from us potentially, take that extra step. Okay, I'd still love to connect with you for 10 minutes to learn more about just the types of opportunities, how frequently you get them, and explain a little bit more. And then again, reference, why are you interested in that organization?
Excellent. Any other quick tips that you want to provide our associates today?
I think the other big thing about resumes, you've got to get a second pair of eyes on it, right? So think about the folks in your network that can help you. I recently did a consultation with one of our contractors around career mapping, and he had received such amazing feedback from his manager, and they wanted us to spotlight him. And I was like, oh, how did you find this job? It was his first job. And one of the tips he shared is he's like, he's 22, he involved his parents' friends in his treated them like advisors, right? And I thought that was great. So many folks don't do stuff like that. But really think about who's gone through a job search in the last year. What coaches do I have access to? Treat recruiters like career coaches, and definitely take that opportunity when you're on the phone with somebody like that to say, what else should I be doing? And what's your top improvement that you would recommend for my resume? Really treat them as that conversation as a consultation too, after you've built some rapport.
This has been an enlightening broadcast. There's so much information in here to digest and dissect. And certainly for any associate that's watching this, if you have more questions, if you're looking for additional resources, if you want to connect with employers, if you want to connect with people like Erica, check out the forum that we've built specifically for Amazon associates moving through this program. And until the next broadcast, thanks for tuning in. And thank you, Erica, for your time.
Of course.